Ray Ladson had always believed that music lived inside people long before they ever touched an instrument. On the morning, he walked into the AGT Music Room, carrying nothing but a worn guitar case and a heart full of memories. He felt the weight of 100 unspoken stories pressing against his chest. The cameras were already being set up, producers whispering directions, lights blooming into brightness overhead. But for Steve, the world felt quiet, almost sacred, as though something unseen was guiding him toward a moment that would change his life. His palms were warm, not from nerves, but from anticipation. Because today wasn't about hitting the perfect notes or impressing a panel. Today was about something deeper, something he'd been running toward for years without realizing it. He sat on a simple wooden stool, adjusted the mic, and looked down at his guitar, tracing the edge of the wood the way one might trace the face of an old friend. The instrument had been with him through every heartbreak, every late-night gig in tiny bars, every celebration and every loss. But this performance, he felt, wasn't for him. It was for the people who had shaped him, the strangers who had become family, the family who had become stars guiding him forward, and the world that seemed to need softness now more than ever. As the first chord shimmered into the room, Warman reached something inside him settled. He wasn't here to entertain. He was here to heal. What Steve didn't know was that just outside the room, in the narrow hallway where the air smelled faintly of fresh coffee and stage dust, a young woman named Evelyn stood frozen in place. She had arrived early to watch rehearsals, hoping to distract herself from the chaos of her life. A week earlier, her father, her rock, her hero, had suffered a severe stroke, leaving his future uncertain. Evelyn had been trying to stay strong, juggling hospital visits, work pressures, and the heavy silence of worry. But when she heard Steve strum that first note, something inexplicable tugged at her heart. It was as if the music whispered her name, urging her closer. She followed the sound until she reached the doorway. Unseen by the crew, her hand pressed against the frame as though steadying herself against the pull of emotion. Inside, Steve began to sing. His voice carried warmth like sunlight after rain, a gentle rasp woven into silky phrasing. "If I could change the world," the lyric floated across the room, soft but powerful, a promise wrapped in melody. With every word, Steve felt layers of himself, unfolding memories of singing beside his grandmother, in a tiny southern church, of his mother humming while stirring dinner on the stove, of his father teaching him to listen to people the way he listened to music. With his whole heart, he closed his eyes and let those memories guide him, shaping each note into something bigger than sound. What made his performance extraordinary wasn't perfection. It was presence. He sang as though speaking directly to someone unseen. And in a way, he was. In the hallway, Evelyn's eyes filled with tears she had been holding back for days. Her father loved this song. He used to play it on weekend mornings, humming softly as he cleaned the old vinyls he had collected over decades. The song reminded her of better times, warm afternoons, gentle laughter, her father's voice saying, "There's always a way to make the world kinder, baby girl." Hearing Steve sing it now felt like a message from someplace beyond fear, a reminder that hope still existed, waiting patiently for her to notice it again. Midway through the song, an unexpected memory hit Steve's mind night 12 years ago, when he had performed at a shelter fundraiser. A little boy, no older than 8, had approached him afterward, clutching a paper star cut from cardboard. "You made me feel safe," the boy had said. Steve kept that star in his wallet for years. By the time it crumbled apart, the boy's words had already become a part of him. And now, as he sang, he felt the weight of that long-ago moment returning, reminding him why he never stopped, why he never gave up, why he believed music could change the world, at least one person's world at a time. When Steve reached the bridge of the song, his voice softened into a whisper of vulnerability. He opened his eyes, just long enough to see something he hadn't expected. Evelyn was standing there, tears on her face, emotion unguarded. Their eyes met for a single heartbeat. He didn't know her story, but he felt it. Felt the grief, the exhaustion, the longing for something light to cling to. Without breaking the song, Steve subtly shifted his focus. Not the notes, but the intention behind them. The song offering her strength she didn't know she needed. She pressed her hand to her heart. For the first time in days, She breathed deeply furious, though his voice had unlocked the air trapped inside her. When the final note faded, no one spoke. Not the crew, not the camera operator, not the producer who usually burst into feedback before the last chord even resolved. Silence held the room like a gentle embrace. Steve looked down, humbled, unaware of the impact he had just left behind. Evelyn wiped her cheeks and stepped back before anyone noticed her. She wasn't sure what she had just experienced, but she knew it mattered. She walked outside into the sunlight, her breath steadier. She reached into her bag, pulled out her phone, and dialed the hospital. Not to ask for updates, not to request new test results, but to tell her father she loved him, loudly and without fear. When he whispered back a weak, fragile whisper, but undeniably alive, her heart lifted. Something inside her had changed. Steve's performance had opened a doorway she hadn't realized was closed. Back in the room, a young intern approached Steve. "Sir," she said, her voice trembling slightly, I don't know what you just did, but I think you healed something in here." She pressed her hand against her chest. Steve smiled softly, shaking his head. "No," he replied. "I just sang a song. The healing, that's yours." Hours later, when the clip of his performance was uploaded to the AGT Music Room channel, it spread faster than anyone expected, not because of flashiness or special effects, not because of vocal acrobatics, but because thousands of people felt the same pull Evelyn had felt. Comments poured in. "Your voice brought my family together again. I listened to this during my chemo appointment and felt hope for the first time in weeks. This song has been my lifeline through grief, and you reminded me why." A week later, as Steve prepared for another rehearsal, a message was delivered to him. A handwritten note. He unfolded it. Gently, "You don't know me, but your performance changed my life. My father is recovering. I found hope again because your voice reminded me it was still there. Thank you for changing my world." Evelyn. Steve pressed the note to his chest, his eyes closing in gratitude. It wasn't fame he wanted. It wasn't applause. It was a reminder that music wasn't just heard. It was felt. It was shared. It was life. When he stepped back into the AGT Music Room that day, he didn't walk in as a performer hoping to impress an audience. He walked in as a man who understood the profound truth his grandmother had once told him. A song doesn't have to be perfect to be powerful. It just has to be honest. And as Steve prepared to sing again, he whispered a promise to himself that he would keep showing up with honesty, compassion, and heart, no matter where this journey led. Because if one song could reach one person at the right moment, then maybe, just maybe, that was how you changed the world. And somewhere, in a hospital room across the city, Evelyn's father listened to that very performance on her phone, his fragile hand wrapped around hers. When Steve's voice filled the room, the old man smiled weakly and whispered, "That's the song that kept us going, baby girl." Evelyn leaned her head on his shoulder, grateful for strangers, for music, for moments that stitched broken hearts back together. The world was still imperfect, still, still, uncertain. But it was also full of people like Steve, people who chose kindness, who chose generosity, who chose to lift others even when no one was watching. People who believed that a single act of compassion could ripple farther than they would ever know. In the end, that was the true magic of Steve Ray Ladson's Change the World cover. Not the notes, not the arrangement, not the technical brilliance though. All those things were there. It was the heart behind the voice, the sincerity behind the story, the quiet but powerful reminder that changing the world didn't always require grand gestures. Sometimes it was as simple as a song. And as viewers across the world pressed replay, wiping tears from their eyes, smiling softly, or holding their loved ones a little closer, they felt the truth settle inside them like a warm light. Hope is still here. Kindness still matters. And music, shared with love, really can change the world.